The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hippo Toes.
Scary dog!
Dancing at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Hello there, and welcome to TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, Alexis Hejna with Honeysuckle Rose Creations, and today we are discussing the third and final season of His Dark Materials, brought to you by BBC One and HBO. This is, of course, an adaptation of the His Dark Material novels by Philip Pullman. The first season was an adaptation of The Northern Lights. The second season, the adaptation of the second book, The Subtle Knife, and the third season, the final season, I wonder, what do you know? It's an adaptation of, yes, the third book, The Amber Spyglass. Joining me, of course, is Mark Radulich. He has been with me for the first two seasons, and we are here to wrap this thing up. How you doing, Mark?
I am just a girl standing in front of Alexis Hejna saying, podcast with me, baby.
Ew.
Look at yourself. Take my male attention and enjoy it, god damn it.
Gee, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so yes, we have discussed the previous two seasons. The first season got a lot of attention, not only because I think a lot of audiences were more familiar with the first book, but a lot of that was also due to another adaptation that came out a while back, a film which American distributors decided to rename The Golden Compass, even though there is no actual compass in the whole freaking book. Because, you know, Americans are stupid.
Is the alethiometer not actually in the book?
It is, but it's not a compass. They never call it a compass.
Gotcha.
Yeah, apparently there was a mention of another compass, but it was like the sextant compass, you know, in navigating. And the publishers in America just got confused and renamed it Golden Compass without actually checking with Philip Pullman about what that referenced.
That's really funny, actually.
Yeah, like I said, America. Yeah, sorry. The American publishers sometimes do not really help ease that stereotype that we're just a bunch of freaking idiots. Okay, but yes, so the first book did get an adaptation a while back in a film with Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman. It did not do well at the box office. It was not that well received. Fans of the book were also very outraged because they cut the freaking ending out of the book to try to leave it on a high note, because I'm sorry, this is not a feel-good book series, okay? This is a very, very mature, fairly dark series with a lot of very dark themes. There's a lot of discussion of death, the idea of coming of age, and what it means to grow up and leave behind your childhood innocence. There is a lot of discussion of the ramifications of religion in the hands of wrong people, and just the fact that sometimes the person that you think you idolize is just a monster, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right.
One of the things that becomes very apparent, especially in this third season, because, you know, I would say the first season and the third season, definitely more so the third season, and they call them series, just point of fact, is this writer of these novels very much seemed to be concerned with blind faith, theocracy, the idea of church and state, and its antagonism, some would say natural antagonism, with science. And, you know, the James McAvoy character is this, you know, is sort of emblematic of the kind of person who is brought up in the faith, rises to the level of scholar and scientist, then rejects faith, and in turn, the faith then insinuates itself. It tries to draw you back. It's one of the things I actually don't really like about the author's point of view. I mean, he's entitled to have it, and these are nicely told stories. This is not a criticism of craft or theme necessarily. I just don't agree with his perspective. His perspective seems to be, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, that science and faith are mutually exclusive. Plenty of scientists in the faith, whatever faith that might be, whether you be Christian or Muslim or Jewish or other. And there are plenty of people who can reconcile their faith in an almighty or almighties or what have you with the knowledge that there are scientific truths, and we should endeavor to explain the unexplainable through what we believe in what we can prove. He doesn't seem to, at least through the James McAvoy character, there seems to be this outright disdain for the faith, and the show is about the triumph of science over faith, and I don't know, that rubs me the wrong way.
A little bit. Like I said, it's interesting to me that this book series got blasted by the Catholic Church because
No shit.
because they argue that it was very anti-religion, and Philip Pullman stood by saying, no, it's not anti-religion, it is anti-theocracy.
Yes.
The idea of this is not, I mean, so many Catholics say this is a book about a man who wants to kill God, and as we learned in the third series, and if you've read all three books, you know that he's not going after God.
He's going after the authority,
who is essentially an angel,
right?
Who just sort of showed up and said, "Oh, wait, I'm God." And then,
yeah, I did you ever read the Dragonlance books?
No, I haven't.
All right, so are you familiar at all with the character Lord Soth?
No.
Okay, really, really short. Lord Soth was an undead knight, and without going into his whole thing, he was a major character in early Dungeons and Dragons and these Dragonlance books. And they wrote a book called The Cataclysm. So the original Dragonlance series takes place after the fall of God. And there are no gods. People are just sort of wandering around. It's kind of the dark ages of this particular world. And the preceding event to that was there's a king priest of the local faith who is acquiring, becoming a theocrat, is acquiring more power, essentially challenges God and says, "I'm just as good as you. Give me your power." And God says, "Nope." And just alongside of that, Lord Soth is sent to stop him from doing the dumbest thing. And Lord Soth gets distracted by a shitty woman and goes after her instead, a little distracted from his duty. And the king priest goes to then, unchallenged by Lord Soth, he goes to then challenge God, and God says, "Are you nuts?" and proceeds to wreck the earth. Thus leading us to the age where the books pick up. It kind of reminds me of that, where you have this man who's become an angel, and this angel who has decided, "I'm just as good as God, give me the power." And then there's James McAvoy going, "None of this is good, all of this is bad, and I'm going to neglect my daughter and become a raging asshole in order to stop it because it is the most important thing," which I sympathize with. I truly do. I'm
sure your daughter loved to hear that.
It's not about my daughter, it is about sometimes as a person, I won't just say as a man, because I'm sure there's some women who feel this way too, though probably not as many men, where the thing that is the most important is the most important thing, and everything else comes second to that. And sometimes that's going to hurt someone's feelings. Sometimes people are going to get neglected because of it, but it is for the greater good. The greater good. There are probably better ways to go about getting to that point than the way James McAvoy does in the series, and the way that Bill, what is it, the author's name, Bill Pullman? The author of the books.
Philip Pullman, yeah.
Philip Pullman, not Bill Pullman, somebody else. Philip Pullman. I'm sure he's aware of that too, but that's not the story he wants to tell. It's more dramatic to make the main character an asshole than it is to make him, reasonable.
Pretty much. But yeah, it does kind of make me laugh a little bit that, like I said, the Catholic Church was like, no, this is anti-Catholicism, this is anti-religion. And it's like, oh, wow, you guys are against a book where the representation of the villain is a theocracy that is just unclenchingly evil. What's that old phrase? Methinks the lady doth protest too much.
Yeah, they looked in the mirror and didn't like what they saw and attacked the mirror. Oops.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so the third season picks up where the second season has left off. We got Lyra, who has been effectively kidnapped by her mother, Mrs. Coulter, who is, and to quote Jessica Rabbit, I hit him on the head with a frying pan and put him in the trunk so he wouldn't get hurt.
Right.
She is literally drugging Lyra and keeping her hidden in a cottage because she knows that the magisterium, the church, wants to kill her. And her idea...
Lyra is the most important girl ever. She's the key to everything.
This would be the point where Robert would start calling her a Mary Sue.
Robert, the critical drinker, Midnight's Edge, Andre, all of us to the right of center internet personalities.
Although she is not a Mary Sue, she is actually I think that Lyra is actually a really great character. I think she's very well developed. She has gone through so much in these 3 books. She goes through so much change and development.
Lyra is a perfectly nicely written character. She is not a Mary Sue. I'm more making fun of the trope.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I unfortunately there is a lot of backlash when you hear about the phrase "a prophecy" and she is the one, and everyone just starts rallying around this shit.
That's why the critical drinker makes those jokes. He's just like, because how many more times do we need a show where the girl is the key to everything? It's like, can we not write a different thing?
It works. Okay, so she's...
Oh, hang on. So Kelsey's like sitting like a few feet from me and is hearing my side of this conversation. And literally, you both just said the same fucking thing. I'm about to hand her the guy that hasn't watched the show, but I'm about to hand her my fucking cans and just go for a walk.
Thank you, Kelsey.
I'm going to go back to door dashing. She says, thank you, Kelsey. Alexis.
Okay,
anyway, so back to the key to everything.
Yeah, so Lyra is being drugged, and while she is asleep, she keeps having visions of her friend Roger, who in the first season was her best friend, who her father, Lord Asriel, James McAvoy, executed in front of her.
It was in the name of science.
In the name of science, yeah, which I think you and I agreed was just a gut-wrenching scene. I still remember us talking about that moment that, frankly, McAvoy knocked out of the park in the first season when he thinks that he basically said, send me a child so I can sever them from their soul and use the energy output. And when Lyra walks through, he starts freaking out because he thinks that they sent his daughter. And then when Roger walks in behind him, he's like, oh, okay, no, this is good.
Oh, good. You came with your own pig hostage. Perfect.
Oh, God. Great line. Okay, so she's getting messages from Roger, who says he's in the land of the dead and he needs her help. We also have our second protagonist, Will, who is the bearer of the subtle knife that can cut through. This is essentially another multiverse story. This is our third multiverse story on this show.
So you know Robert Winfrey, yeah?
I think I've heard of him once or twice.
You may have seen him on 1 or 2 of my shows. And lately, the drum that he's been beating rather loudly is, can we stop with the fucking multiverses? When they started in on this show with the entire multiverse is at stake, somewhere in Utah, I knew Robert had felt a disturbance in the force.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, man. I'm glad there are certain things where I'm just like, I'm glad he doesn't watch this. I don't want him to. He'll be sad. So yeah, we have another show where there are times in popular fiction where something becomes popular, but then everybody has to do it. And we're in this, and right now with between Marvel, this, and probably some other stuff I'm not even thinking about. Probably Star Wars is next.
Everything everywhere all at once.
Everything is the multiverse. That is the current thing we're playing with. Back in the days of yore, the reason why superheroes got their powers was through like cosmic radiation, a radioactive spider, or gamma radiation. Why? because that's what we were afraid of at the time. We were afraid of being killed by a nuclear weapon, which has to do with radiation, and so it's like, and then as the years go on, we get afraid of something else. Now, apparently, I don't know if it's fear, I don't know, anxiety. I don't know what is happening I don't know what is happening in the national conversation or national psyche that the reflection back from popular fiction is the multiverse is at stake. Like, I'm desperately wanting us to get over this and let's do something else.
Yeah, I still believe there's another universe out there where David Bowie didn't die. He's still the lightning rod of weirdness, and he has kept this world from going into the giant dumpster fire that has become.
You're going to get me to say something I promised I would stop saying this year. Please continue.
Okay, for the record, this book came out years ago. In fact, when did the third book come out here? I want to get a confirmation on this. Okay, Amber Spyglass, the third book, came out in the year 2000. This book is over 20 years old. I do not remember if the word multiverse was ever mentioned in any of the books. I do not remember that.
Right.
The idea was just it's different worlds that are all connected.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Pullman was just incredibly ahead of his time, or some writer at HBO basically said, hang on, you got to drop the word multiverse at least once.
It happens. Faith No More and Aerosmith and a handful of others were doing rap metal before, nu metal became the most popular thing ever for a hot minute. It does. Some people are just ahead of their time.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're not saying like this series was purposely capitalizing on what's popular. It's a wild coincidence. It really is.
Yeah, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Okay, so we got Will Perry, who is the bear.
Hang on,
of
do you
the
know what
knife.
I'm making fun? Do you know what that's a reference to?
What did you say again?
It's like poetry. It rhymes. Do you know what that's a reference to?
No.
George Lucas being interviewed about the production of the Phantom Menace. And so he's talking about how there are things happening in the Phantom Menace that resemble things that happened in the original trilogy. And he goes, it's like poetry. It rhymes. And it's been relentlessly made fun of ever since. It started because of the Red Letter Media Phantom Menace reviews.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have not had time to sit down and watch the Red Letter Media Phantom Menace reviews. I'm going to need like a very large, very strong container of alcohol to get through that.
Okay, you sit at your computer or you sit at your workbench and you make jewelry from game pieces that you sell on honeysucklerosecreations.com, available at all Etsy and Amazon websites and locations. At the corner of Geek and Chic.
Intersection.
Whatever. Fuck yourself. Put it on during that. Next time you're making, bracelets and earrings and shit, put it on, it's like an hour long.
I hate to say it, when I work, I actually have to listen to something that I've listened to before. Otherwise I get distracted and I don't focus on my work. It's the idea of like listening to your favorite songs.
Sure. I get that. I listen to podcasts I've listened to before at night to go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. It allows me to, it keeps my mind focused, but it doesn't distract me from what I'm doing. Okay.
Yes.
This is like the fourth time now. Let's get back to the plot. So Will has got the knife and he is searching across the multiverse for Lyra. He doesn't know what happened, and he's been approached by two literal angels whose names
in a dark alley in San Francisco outside of it. Never mind.
I am not going to try to pronounce these angels' names. That Pullman really got creative with a lot of characters' names in this series.
Bob and Steve. Bob the Angel, Steve the Angel.
Okay, Bob and Steve.
Got it.
Who say that they need the knife because that is it essentially can cut through anything. So I guess they're saying, hey, if that can cut through anything, then that can stab the regent. Because apparently the fight is not so much against this angel who says he's the creator. It is his regent, Metatron. It's not against, essentially it's saying it's not against God, it's against the voice of God. And I think a lot of that also goes back to the theocracy. The idea of Pullman saying, my problem is not with the idea of God.
My problem is
Jesus.
not with faith. My problem is with faith as government.
Exactly. My problem is not with the figure that is ruling. My problem is the figure that is the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
So I guess they want the knife to stab Metatron. And Will is like, no, I gotta find Lyra first. And I'm trying to condense this because I'm just gonna say I've enjoyed this series. I really enjoyed the first season. The second season I thought was a little slow. It did a good job of keeping our attention and keeping things interesting, which I credit entirely with the actors. This third season gets a little on the contrived side and just kind of goes a little crazy at some points. But what do you expect? You have a character who is literally assembling an army from various hiccuping here, multiverses to literally fight God.
I kept thinking about Lord of the Rings through this, where everything is leading to the Battle of Pelennor Fields. It is all there is the trilogy. If you take away, this is about the journey of a small person in a larger, intense world, and and having to put forth the effort, fight the great fight, and resist your own darkness and temptations. That's what it's dealing with the end of the world is what Tolkien was trying to get across in Lord of the Rings. But you take all that out of there, and you just kind of focus on what is the framing device for this, for these themes, for this tale. And it's you have an evil army that is building up on two fronts, and it's meant to sandwich in the good people of the world, and it's all going to go down on Pelennor Field. When Sauron makes his march to Gondor, that is it. That is the main event. That is what this has all been leading to. And so you're on that journey for Lord of the Rings, and you're identifying with Frodo, and you're getting to know the Fellowship. And when the Fellowship breaks up, you're invested in seeing will Merry and Pippin get killed by orcs? Who knows? We're gonna follow them. Is Aragorn ever going to regain the mantle of king and sit on his throne in Gondor and save it from Sauron himself? Who knows? We're gonna find out. You're on that journey, and I was struggling with this one because it's kind of the same setup where everything has been leading to this. Everything has been leading to James McAvoy leading his army of men against God's army. And in the middle of all of this is, playing the part of Frodo, is Lyra, who is the key to everything. And unlike Lord of the Rings, where I was overly invested in all of these characters and everything that was happening, and so when we got to the Battle of Pelennor Fields, I was glued to my seat, and it's a movie. I know they're gonna win, especially when the fucking Ghost Army shows up, the Deus Ex Machina army.
Mhm.
I didn't care. I was still, as a fan, as a viewer, invested in the action in these characters, that I went for the ride willingly. I let my disbelief be suspended. I don't have that strong of a tie to his Dark Materials. James McAvoy is a douchebag.
Insanely.
The woman that plays the mother is a douchebag. Dafne Keen is fine. She's doing her level best here, but they write her and her performance as kind of flat. Will's kind of flat. The scientist character who's talking to the animals from Zimbabwe is she's okay. And it's all, this whole season is split between them gearing up to fight God, and first finding Lyra, then rescuing Lyra, then Lyra deciding fuck God, I want to go save my friend from death. And they spend forever there, and it's these long, and it's like 2 episodes long, and it's this long set piece of them walking through what essentially is a cave, and then it ends with they get to the top. Like, the worst thing that happens to Lyra is essentially God sends down a lightning bolt that just grazes her. She gets up, she dusts herself off, they walk to the end of the cliff. Will opens up a hole in the universe, and everyone walks out and becomes dust.
That is part of the problem with this, is that
it's underwhelming, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we root for Lyra and Will, but it is a little hard when you don't really have a lot of other characters. We keep cutting back to Lord Asriel and Mrs. Coulter, who, we know what they're doing is right, but it's very hard to get behind them and support them, especially Mrs. Coulter, who just bounces back and forth like crazy. I mean, this is the woman who was experimenting on children.
In
She
the
in
name
the
of science. In the name of science.
in the name of science, she was literally cutting out children's souls.
I mean, it's for the greater good.
The greater
The
good.
greater good. Yeah, it's hard to make her sympathetic when, like, you spend the entire first season killing children.
Not just killing children. Like, that's the thing, is that when you're severed from your demon, your soul, you don't just die immediately. You basically get a full frontal freaking lobotomy.
Yeah,
It's a nightmare.
right. Yeah, so this season they want you. It's almost like they want her to have like a redemption arc. Like, okay, I mean, I guess if you could redeem Darth Vader and all the people he's killed, including an entire planet full of people, I suppose you can redeem Miss Coulter too. But let me tell you, Alexis, I watched this. I'm here to talk to you about it, but there's a lot of this that I joked about it last night. I was just like, we started this when we were just reviewing everything, and I'm committed to it because it's only 3 seasons long, and I'll take the opportunity just to talk with you for an hour because I enjoy that. But boy, this show is it's not quite Resident Alien. You know, we actually have something to talk about here, but I don't want to say it's a bad show. It's just one of those where it's like, this doesn't give you that sense of fulfillment that like some of the other high fantasy shows do, where you are really with these characters and you are really rooting for them to succeed, and you know you want to see someone who was bad be redeemed and be absolved of their sins and all of that. And here everything is just sort of kind of like flat, with the exception of James McAvoy screaming at God every other scene. Then I'm like, nah. I honestly watched a lot of this either while I was at work on lunch or while I was doing stuff at my computer, because it did not fully capture my interest where I was enraptured in what I was watching.
I think a lot of that also comes to the fact that as far as a villain, we have the Magisterium, which we spend quite a lot of time with Cardinal, later Father President. And yeah, there's definitely something to be said about that. But the real war is against this character Metatron, who, side note, you watch The Boys, right?
I did.
The guy who plays Metatron also played the Translucent.
Okay.
So yeah, I looked and I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy's dick. Good to know.
Boy, if I had a nickel.
Yeah, pretty much. Hell, I still remember when we reviewed the HBO Watchmen series, and I think we both shouted at the same time, "Whoa, big blue dick!"
Big blue, yep. Zack Snyder's Watchmen. Hey, look, big blue cock.
Yeah, pretty much. But we only hear from Metatron a couple of times, and we don't see him until the penultimate episode. I've always said that if you need a good show, if you're going to focus on a battle of good and evil, you really have to have the villain properly seen and realized. Imagine if in we keep going back to Lord of the Rings. Imagine if Lord of the Rings, we didn't see the Eye of Sauron until like 20 minutes before the end of Return of the King, and we focused entirely on Saruman.
Right.
And then he dies, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now let's go fight this giant eye dude. And it's like, wait, what giant eye dude?
Right. Where did the giant eye come from? What's he all about? What's going on here? Yeah, they should have set up Metatron from the start. Metatron, Metatron in the Magisterium and everything, that should have been bled through the entire trilogy. So that, and I think that's my issue, is that the first season was about getting across the continent essentially and just getting to Coulter and ultimately, her father. And then the second season, they were world hopping for whatever the reasons were and learning how to use the knife and the alethiometer, and it was a lot of greater world building in season 2. And then in season 3, it's like, all right, we're finally here. We're at, it's finally time for the Battle of Pelennor Field. And it was like, we haven't even been talking about this for the first 2 seasons.
The only part of the third season that really strikes me and stays with me is the scenes that go through the Land of the Dead. First of all, we get a fairly well done scene with Dafne Keen as they enter. They have to essentially cross the river Styx, and they find out they cannot take their demons, their souls, with them.
And she turns into Karen. Sorry.
Yeah, it is actually kind of funny how she's trying to find some loophole.
She's
It's
just
like,
like-
I think,
No, I am taking him. I want to speak to a manager. Like,
yeah,
oh my
pretty
god.
much. But there is, because we know that the further a human and their demon are separated,
Right.
the more they are in pain. So the idea of her separating from him is just something that she is not ready to bear. And
Mhm.
she does, there is, again, the whole thing she does turn a little bit into a Karen, tries like, okay, fine, he can fit here. Okay, fine, I'll drive the boat. It's just like, you see her
That was
trying
the
to find.
best. Fuck off! I'll drive. It's like what? No, you're not the death ferryman, little girl.
Yeah, but at the same time, you appreciate that she's trying to find any and all loopholes she can think of to, get through this.
It goes to something that James McAvoy's character said about her. Where she's in this entitled child with a knack for getting into trouble, and it's funny that never really changes because even at the end, where they're in paradise. And they're told, okay, you guys can't stay here. You have shit to do, and you can't do it together. You're from two different worlds. You got to go back to them. And she's like, no, we don't. No, we're just going to stay here. It's fine. No, it doesn't work this way, you dipshit. I think that's one of my great struggles with her as a character is you would think that after 3 shows, she would have evolved. She would have changed in some way. She kind of like Frodo wears the burden of the journey on her shoulders and in her eyes, but ultimately I think she's still like at her core the same kind of entitled person, and I'm like, I'm not impressed. Go ahead, give me 1 second.
Okay, good to know. No, there is something to be said about that, but the Land of the Dead sequence, in my opinion, is probably the best part of season 3. We have Lyra and Will wandering around and realizing that they're essentially the way the authority has ran things so far is that there is no heaven, there is no hell, there is only purgatory, and all of these souls.
There's only Zool.
There's only Zool, and all of these souls are just wandering around
Right.
in pain from these I think they're harpies
Mm-hmm.
that are essentially forcing them to relive all of their guilt,
Mm-hmm.
and they can no longer remember what it is to be human. And Lyra and Will realize they need to get them out of there. And again, there is something great. You have this wonderful scene of Lyra reminding Roger of his humanity and the things they used to do when he was alive, and they were both kids, and all the other souls gravitate towards that. And the more that they start hearing these stories, the more they start remembering their own lives, and that is what essentially pulls them out of the doldrums.
Right.
There is a great deal of focus on the story element that it is our humanity that gives us purpose, not our divinity as our souls. It is the lives that we lead. It is what we experience. It is everything that we come across that makes life worth living. It is not sitting and praying. It is not essentially. There is something to be said about the idea that life should not be for the afterlife. Life should be what it is today, what you can get out of it. And there is a great bit of that. I also love that we get the return of Lee Scoresby, who died in the 2nd season, because much like Alan Tudyk, Lin-Manuel Miranda just makes everything better, in my opinion.
He's great in this. I genuinely enjoy Lin-Manuel Miranda as an actor.
I do too.
He brings a airiness and light to any performance that he does. Like he almost like glows.
Mm-hmm.
Even in this like sort of drab, everything is great and zombied up set piece, he's still like he has this like really, there's a tone in his voice, and I love it. It's like magical. It makes me feel warm inside. Like he talks, and it's so, and I don't think he's doing it purposefully. I think it's just the tone of his voice and like how I'm perceiving it. But it's almost sing-songy. He's just like Lyra, and he's so happy.
He's got this little bit of a country twang to it. And
yeah,
when he talks about it's like they're talking about this girl who's going to lead us out here. It just, you want to listen to his voice.
Right.
It's so comforting.
I could hear him read from a cookbook, and I would be mesmerized.
You know, it's funny. As much as we love him as a composer, and
Mhm.
he is amazing as a composer, I want to see him as an actor in more
Yeah.
stuff. It's like, dude, I know that you are, at the moment, God's gift to Broadway and Disney musicals, but please get back in front of the camera a little bit more.
Yeah,
We
I mean, even if
really,
it's just
really
like
want
walk-on
that.
parts here and there, I don't need him to star in anything. But I liked his role in his Dark Materials. It was actually one of the really bright shining points of this entire experience.
hmm So, yeah, the whole sequence with them going through the land of the dead is very touching, really well done, and I enjoyed it. But then we get back to the battle, and it. Okay, I have a quick question. I admit that it was a while ago that we discussed the second season. I do not remember where those little mechanical fairy people came from. Were they introduced in the second season? Because I do not remember them at
For the
all.
sake of this conversation, I'm gonna go ahead and say yeah, but no, I don't. I kind of said that too. Like I remembered the goth witches that fly around.
hmm
Um, and I where Adabisi from Oz. It'll always be Adabisi to me. Where his fucking army came from, I have no idea.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
he's in another
yeah,
another universe or something.
yeah. I had no clue. Like I said, I didn't go back and like really revisit seasons 1 and 2. I watched what was shown on HBO Max in the in the recaps, but like I didn't even like go back and read the wiki on this. So I was like, I remembered she got kidnapped at the end of season 2. That's about, and then they show you that. So it's like, okay, I don't really need a whole lot of background here because James McAvoy also tells you, like, look, I'm here to fight God and I need an army to do it. Great. Then everything that I see after that, I can just roll with. And so, like, you're asking, like, oh, where did the pixies come from? I don't know, somewhere. He needed them. That's all I cared about.
Because yeah, when he busts that one dude out of the prison or whatever, and I notice it's like, why does he have those two little fairies? I'm sorry, did he make a stopover in Pan's Labyrinth that we didn't know about?
He got Pym particles from another universe.
Yeah, pretty much. I do not remember where those guys came from.
Multiverse.
So there is a serious issue with connecting the broader elements of this season. Again, it's been a long time since I've read the Amber Spyglass, so I don't know how much was developed with Mrs. Coulter and Lord Asriel outside of what was going on.
Hmm.
Because obviously we had to build these characters up more. We had to see more what they were doing, because if we just cut back to suddenly there's the battle, then it's going to feel more out of place than the Battle of the Five Armies.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is, again, this is a really good series. I do recommend it. But if the show does have one downfall, it is this third season trying to connect all of the story elements back together.
Yeah. Here's my kind of final word on this. It's not bad. It's just, I think, I look, if you can tolerate sort of if you can tolerate a lack of bombast, a lot, like Lord of the Rings had sort of an epicness to it, and even when characters were sort of speaking quietly, it had that sort of like regal sense to it, where his Dark Materials, other than like the James McAvoy character, no one gets particularly excited about anything, and it's hard for me, at least. Maybe some other people have. That's why I started the way that I did. It's hard for me to say like tremendously invested, so I'm kind of passively watching the show. And did I want him to see him defeat God? Sure. They made the authority seem shitty. The majesty. I think that's one thing the show does really well, is there is no sympathy for the magisterium.
None
And
whatsoever.
if you
I
think
do
about it
love
too hard, it gets annoying. And that's what I said at the top of the show, was like, after a while, like, we get it. You don't like religion. Move the fuck on already.
I do love the scene with Mrs. Coulter and Father President when they're trying to sacrifice her, and he's like, "Oh, it's not too late for you to repent. Let me give you your last blessing." And she just snaps at him. It's like, "Take your hand off of me." I love the tension in that bit. That was really well done.
I enjoyed that at the very end, where I think it's the same character, where he's about to sniper shoot fucking Lyra and Will. He's in the grassy
Oh,
knoll.
that's Father Gomez.
Yeah, Father Gomez. Yeah. And and the angel and the Steve, the angel, comes up behind him, and he was like, "I'm not gonna let you kill innocent children." Does like a Ghost Rider penance stare on him. That was great.
He killed his demon.
Yeah. Right. And down he went. But was one of those. That was like if I had like a cheering moment. If I had a you bow before no one moment, it was that one.
That was really good because I love the whole bit with Father goes like, "We're on the same side," and the angel's like, "Yeah, no, we're not." There is a really good bit, and I I'm going to give credit to a lot of the actors in this. Even that little scene with the actor playing Father Gomez kneeling before the angel, the look on his face when he's just confronted with everything he's believed in, and you feel the awe, the shock, the pain, and the confusion in just that one line, "We're on the same side." So many of the actors in this series are so great. We talk about the actors playing Lyra and Will, and there are a few times when they're very flat, but we get the final episode where they realize they love each other, but they're going to have to go their separate ways, and it just rips them apart, literally and emotionally. And that actually did resonate with me because even though, it's funny because I went to IMDb to read reviews on this, and this season got ripped to shreds by the fans, especially the last episode, with a lot of them complaining about it's like that's all it comes down to. They're in love, and it's like, wow, you jaded assholes.
But I mean, like they're in defense of this guy not wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater. That is what the New Testament talks about. The Old Testament is about behave or God will kill you. The New Testament is in many ways about love of your fellow man, that sort of thing. And I feel like that's what he was trying to get at there. And is it the worst thing in the world that love will save us all? Because not for nothing, and this might sound corny, but also, duh, if we loved each other a little bit more, there'd be a little less jittiness in the world. And I don't know why, A, that's a foreign concept, and B, people struggle with that.
And I think it does harken back to first love in a way. I know, and that is what actually got me fairly teary-eyed at this ending. I remember being that young and the first time you felt that sense of just pure bliss being with someone. And it is heart-wrenching, and these two kids give it their all when they're told they have to go their separate ways. And you have this really great scene of them essentially saying, "We'll see each other in the afterlife." You get the great bit, and I know that sounds so freaking corny, but I love the dialogue of Lyra saying it's like, "We'll go through the land of the dead and we will tell our life story to the heartbeat, and then we will be reunited and our atoms will mix together to form new life." It's really well done. And these kids are just, they're crying, they're sobbing, they are giving it their all. This is this is the best acting they give in the whole season, or the whole series, actually, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I like Dafne Keen and Logan, but she's certainly come a long way. So, all right, anything else you got? Because I'm, I enjoyed talking about this with you. I enjoyed our conversations about it. I'm not unhappy I watched it. I'm also way done with this now. Like I kind of was like, what am I going to watch next to get this out of my brain? I don't know. Snowfall's back. Oh, good. Crack.
Well, I got to go watch the third season of Animaniacs on Hulu because Zachary Strobel and I will be discussing that tomorrow. Plug.
My son got me to watch a little bit of that yesterday, and I tell you what, the bit, well, you haven't watched any. There's a bit where someone's pitching a movie, and the way that it's done cracked because of me. I study the film industry, not just the craft parts of it, but the production and finance parts. And so we talk about what it is to pitch a movie and the 4 quadrants and all of that. And they very much played with that idea. There's also a line from Dot. Let me know when you'll know when you hear it. But there's a line where Dot kind of like partially quotes the theme, and she does it with utter disdain. I had to catch my breath. I was laughing pretty hard. Believe me, I don't want to talk about it for another hour. I'm happy to. My son wanted to watch it with me. I was happy to spend time with my son, and that's about as much attachment to the new Animaniacs as I've got at this point. So you and Zach, you guys can pull on each other's wieners all you want and have fun with that. But
that's why I brought Zach in, because we needed someone else to discuss cartoons, because I was getting tired of me saying it's like, well, this is the reason you brought me in, but if no one else wants to talk with me, then what the hell am I supposed to do?
Well, you should have asked Pat. He's always up for talking cartoons.
Tell Pat if he needs to stop bitching about Zachary's puns.
You're all adults. Get along. I'm tired. Like I said in the chat, I'm going to say it live on air. I'm not getting in between all of you anymore. I'm already been in enough threesomes I didn't want to be in. All right. Well, we've lost.
I needed that.
Woo! I got one.
Okay, so yes, His Dark Materials, all 3 seasons are available on HBO Max. It's, good to see they're not cutting everything.
Oh my God. I went on I don't know if you deign to listen to something that doesn't have the sound of your voice on it, listen to our Cocaine Bear review, because just go to the money part. You don't have to listen to the review of the movie. But I did an entire rant about how Disney Plus is killing that studio, just murdering it dead. And I said the only one that's ever come close to that, and they've handled their business, is Warner Brothers and HBO Max. Like, these streaming services were gilded gilded gifts, to say the least. These have not panned out the way anyone thought they would. And at least Warner Brothers and Zaslav had the wherewithal and the intelligence to be like, you know what? I'm not being a slave to the streaming service anymore. We're cutting everything. Everything goes, except for Velma.
Yeah, Mindy Kaling apparently had some pretty damn good lawyers go through her contract.
Mindy Kaling is the authority.
Oh, God, I literally just had a shiver go down my back. Don't ever say that again.
Metatron Kaling.
Ew, oh, no. All right. Sorry, I'm still pissed off at Zaslav for cutting more than half the available Looney Tunes.
All right, ask me where you're pissed from. Let's go.
All right, so yeah, like I said, this is available on HBO Max. Again, the 3rd season, probably not. We're not going to say is as good as the first 2 seasons, but it's still enjoyable overall. Go ahead and check it out if you're curious, or if you are a fan of the original books. I honestly think that this does a very fair job of adapting the source material. And if you read the books when you were younger, or you were curious about them, but you heard too much about how they were written by somebody who was going to completely, destroy your innocence by zapping the Christianity out of you, go ahead and check it out. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and do our plugs. Mark, when will we be hearing your angelic voice again?
Flattery will get you everywhere. So this is airing, depending on when you're listening to this is airing on March 1st. Yesterday was the 28th, and that's when it was recorded on Monday night and went up on the 28th, was our Cocaine Bear review. Tomorrow, Thursday, March 2nd, we are finishing Black History Month and our look back at the great features in Black cinema by doing a survey of Eddie Murphy movies. And that survey consists of Harlem Nights, featuring the also great comedian who we eventually need to do his filmography, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. Also, again, Eddie Murphy and another great comedian, way ahead of his time, Dan Aykroyd, and they are in Trading Places. And then finally, Eddie Murphy pairing up with yet another great, more modern comedian, at least at the time that this movie was made, Life, with Martin Lawrence. Life. Nelly. So Harlem Nights, Trading Places, and Life, and that's going to be Thursday night. And that is the end of Black History Month. And, that is the end of me dealing with Jason for at least a month. No, that's not true. Jason, I can't get rid of Jason at all. As a matter of fact, Jason threw Robert off the show for a week and said, this is my show now. So we're going to do Creed 3 a week from when we're recording, so March 7th. And then I'm gone for a week, Alexis. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? That I am like Sam Malone, and I am leaving you, Kirstie Alley, the bar. How do you feel about that?
I'm sorry, what?
Cheers,
no, I know. I got the reference. I was saying, what do you mean you're leaving me in charge?
You are heading up our Scream 6 review. I will be on a cruise. Yes, you did. Do read the memos I send you.
What memos? You locked me in the basement.
I send you memos. Anyway, you are heading up the Damn You Hollywood for Scream 6 on March 14th. It'll be you, Dorian Price, presumably, Robert, and Jason. I will be somewhere in the Caribbean. How about that?
Have a pina colada for me, dude.
I will have a pina colada on you. Next
I
week.
said for me, not on me. I'm not paying for your damn alcohol.
No, my dad is. Saturdays and Sundays are strictly re-airs these days. Saturday is the Everyone Loves a Bad Guy for Frankenstein. Sunday is the Metal Hammer of Doom for Iced Earth, Plagues of Babylon. Look, we didn't know the guy was going to be all MAGA and January 6th about life. I'm sorry. We did this back in 2014. Don't yell at me. We got a re-air of Archie versus Predator on Source Material, a show I forgot I was on. And then Thursday, before I go on vacation, myself and Pat Mullen, Alexis Hejna's favorite Radulich and Broadcasting Network member, we will be talking Aaron Pryor versus Alexis Arguello, not Alexis Hejna of Honeysuckle Rose Creations. Aaron Pryor versus Alexis Arguello and the history of boxing. All right, I'm done with my plugs. I'm done talking now.
All right, as far as the plugs that actually do pay the bills, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We're getting ready because the con season is starting back up. Time to get back on the road for the conventions.
Woo!
So glad because I've been stuck here at home for the last 4 months. I need to get out of here. All right. So we got 2 shows coming up. First one is going to be in Lawrence, Kansas. This is the LPL Con. It's a small little show. First time doing it. They invited us. I'm looking forward to it. Weekend after that, Planet Comic Con here in Kansas City. That is our home show. Love working that one. So excited. Cannot wait. Other than that, you can find all of our stuff on our Etsy and Handmade at Amazon shops. We got tons of new material that we just added. Lots of new merch. Sadly, I don't have any his Dark Materials stuff, but hey, if you like Dafne Keen and Logan, we do have some awesome Wolverine and X-23 pieces. Other than that, you can always follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and yes, Under Duress Twitter. That's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. So for myself and for Mark, be well, behave, be safe, and don't piss off the church.